That's 2 partners you lost. Your partner died. Dude, that is the best death scene ever. No! That is the best death scene ever. What is up, everyone? Phil here, and welcome to my review for the latest release from Volition Games, a game studio that previously made games like the Saints Row franchise, Agents of Mayhem. If you're shocked and wondering why does the review look like this, I just released a vlog on this channel explaining the changes to the channel. So watch that. It'll give you the full skinny, and reviews, at least for the current period of time, are going to look like this moving forward. Alright? So, Agents of Mayhem. I was actually excited for this release because I like Saints Row 2, 3, and 4. These are all games that I played on my YouTube gaming channels over the years. People loved the playthroughs because it had this adult-oriented, kind of silly, off-the-wall, crazy, zany, sometimes sexual humor and or extreme violence to the point of being cartoony. It had colorful characters, great writing, you know, a lot of jokes, but also some pretty fun and solid gameplay. You know, Saints Row 2, a more realistic kind of third-person gang-based shooter. Saints Row 3, taking the series more into the zany territory. And then Saints Row 4 going completely over the top, having superpowers and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But it made a logical ending point for the series because where could you go from there once you go that extreme, right? And so when Agents of Mayhem was announced and they said,
I actually get a little soreness in my big toe, but if I start taking my medication, it normally knocks it right out, and I'm fine.
But they're nowhere near as funny. You could tell they're trying, but they're not really trying hard enough, and they miss the mark. That's really what Agents of Mayhem feels like. It feels like a knockoff or a bad bootleg of the Saints Row franchise for various reasons. All right, first of all, Agents of Mayhem's combat and primary gameplay is actually more similar to Saints Row 4 than other iterations of the series. What you do is you're going to be running around an open world city. You're going to be doing tons of third-person shooting, all right, just like you did in previous Saints Row games. That's kind of how it was. Some characters that you unlock in the game end up having more of a kind of free-flowing movement through the city than others. Some others are a little bit slower. But for the most part, you can run and dash, you can double or triple jump, and you can air dash throughout the entire city, and everyone can pretty much do the same thing. Some characters can grapple and climb buildings, some can't. And your goal in the game is to basically just do a bunch of preset missions where you're going to be fighting waves and waves of generic enemies, and sometimes there'll be a boss, sometimes there won't, sometimes there'll be some plot and cutscenes, sometimes there won't. But really what Agents of Mayhem is at its core is a grind. For the most part, all you're going to be doing is generic third-person shooting with a little bit of variation depending on which agent you're actually playing as, because they all have different weapons and loadouts that can make them play a little bit differently. But for the most part, your job is to kill 5 million generic enemies till you get to something unique like a boss fight, beat it, and then progress back to the next boring generic gameplay for the next 4 or 5, or change one of their weapon properties and stuff like that. And that's kind of different. That wasn't really loot and equipment wasn't really a big deal when it came to Saints Row games. And really another major change that is kind of silly in my opinion, one of the things that stood out for the Saints Row franchise were the vehicles, the variety of vehicles, and the fact that the vehicles were zany and crazy, and once you unlocked them, you could do a lot of fun stuff in the games. Agents of Mayhem has I believe less than a dozen vehicles, and they're all basically ground-based cars that aren't very different from each other, and you don't ever need them. I'm serious about that when I say that. You don't ever need a vehicle in Agents of Mayhem. You can summon one to drive from point A to point B, and there are very few scripted missions where, oh, you have to race and reach one area real quickly. For the most part, the entirety of the game, you could just walk. And it's almost just as fast as driving in the car. In fact, in some cases, it's faster because you can jump and double jump and air dash through these narrow alleys and corridors between the buildings of the open world city of Seoul, Korea. That's where it's set, this game. So, you know, sometimes the car is actually worse. It's slower because you have to go all the way around the block.
Arthritis called gout that has had a long and interesting...
Mayhem, I have no idea. It just seems like this game is such a hybrid of trying to be Saints Row, but also like an RPG-style shooter, but like it has identity crisis. It doesn't really want to know what it is. It's just kind of really odd. For me, the biggest negative about the game isn't the fact that it's boring and grinding and repetitive. It's that it really does lack the quality of humor that the Saints Row games are synonymous for. When you play Saints Row 2, 3, or 4, I've found myself laughing out loud constantly at the writing, the jokes, the humor. Not every joke hit it big, but for the most part, the irreverent humor and the adult comedy made me laugh and kept me engaged. I wanted to keep playing the game. Even if maybe I was on a tough or repetitive or boring mission, the humor kept me hooked. In Agents of Mayhem, it's like I said, it's like the less talented younger brother comedian tried to write jokes for this game and failed absolutely miserably. It's not funny. Very rarely did I ever find anything that was said or done in the game as entertaining or funny. The villains that you're facing are supposed to be like super villains because you're supposed to be like a super team of agents that are taking out super villains. They're really crappy. Like, there's one guy supposed to be like a knockoff of like a Justin Bieber pop star, and the only time he ever does anything funny is during his boss fight. You'll disable the auto-tune, and all of a sudden you hear him sing without the auto-tune, and he's terrible. He's off-pitch, he's, garbage. But outside of that, I don't think I ever laughed once in the entirety of the video game. In fact, some of the stuff in the game is a blatant ripoff of other comedy series I've seen. Like, for example, one of the big bosses is in love with an AI Asian girl who's a pop star, and basically it's a running joke. Oh, he can't get with a real girl, so there's an AI that he's in love with, right? This is directly copied from the TV show Archer, where there's a doctor who invents a Japanese girl AI. He's in love with her, and later on he turns her into like a cyborg who he has sex with, and that's exactly what happens in this game. I'm not even kidding. That's what happens. So, like, what a fucking knockoff. Like, nothing in this game is funny, or all the gangs and made them all one, so now he has nothing else to do there, so now he's over here fighting with the Agents of Mayhem. The other one, Oleg, his backstory is that apparently he was turned into like this mutated super soldier, almost like Mr. Freeze from Batman, so he has an ice gun. That's kind of one of the more unique weapons of the game. But again, they're called different things. They're not called the same names as they were in Saints Row, and it's almost like, even though they want to have ties to Saints Row, they wanted to disassociate Agents of Mayhem from it, so no one makes the mistake, and that way if the game's not good and people don't like it, they won't say that Saints Row sucks. In fact, there are strong rumors that Agents of Mayhem was actually supposed to be Saints Row 5 and was being developed, being called Saints Row 5, until halfway through development, they decided to make some changes, and then they said, well, let's disassociate it. So that would be why it seems like there may be some actual close similarities and even recurring characters, even though it's not an official Saints Row game. And thank God they did that, because if they had to call this Saints Row, it would have brought the whole franchise down. What a poorly made and just kind of shitty game this is. And what do I mean by that? I mean, even for the fact that the game's a grind fest or whatever, and the game really, the graphics are kind of cartoony. They're on par with, say, Saints Row 4. Of course, now they're on PS4, so slightly better. They're not bad, but at the same time, it's nothing like, oh my god, groundbreaking detail or whatever. The graphics chug along at a very low frame rate for most of the game. I mean, 30 frames per second when nothing's going on, and then as soon as you get into heavy combat, it could dip into the teens. And I'm not exaggerating there. There are many times during giant battles where I really couldn't keep track of what on earth was going on because the frame rate dipped so badly. So I would just spray everywhere, spraying and praying, hoping that things would die, and spam my abilities on my bumper buttons just to hope that everything dies and I don't die, because I couldn't control what was going on anymore. And that's sad. That's really sad that a game like this, that really didn't originate or do anything too interesting, couldn't even get a solid graphical performance on consoles. And I've actually heard it's the same on PC, that the PC has the same issues. So, what the heck, man? So you may say to yourself, alright, so all the stuff I just mentioned and some other grinding like mission, take over a base, destroy a generic thing in the city to earn additional experience or whatever. And besides the optional agents missions, there's really not much else to do in the game. You might say, gee, it's a third-person shooter in an open world. It sounds like it could be a great co-op game. Nope, they didn't put any co-op in the game. In fact, there's no online capability whatsoever in Agents of Mayhem. Baffles the mind. You would think this would be the kind of game that, okay, it's boring and grindy, but we've seen in the past few years, if you take games, for example, Tom Clancy's The Division, or Ghost Recon Wildlands, or hell, even games like Destiny that aren't necessarily the most fun to play, but if you play with friends, they're great, right? Social experiences, it's fun to grind and play these games with friends. They didn't even do that. So they didn't even add in the potential aspect that's successful for other grindy franchises to make this game good or entertaining. I have no idea what happened with Agents of Mayhem. It's almost like they had an idea to change Saints Row and make it different because they thought they had gone as far as they could with the old formula, and then they somewhere lost their way in the middle. Like, it almost seems like, to me, they were making an adult-oriented game, and then once they started making it, they changed their mind. Because the thing is, like I said, the humor doesn't hit the levels of raunchiness or fun that used to be in previous Saints Row games. And the cast of agents are a multicultural team. I'm not even kidding you. all different races, creeds. There's tons of women, which is fine, but doesn't it seem kind of like someone came in, the diversity coach or the SJW guy or gal came in and said, this game needs more diversity and less of the male-oriented humor that's made Saints Row funny. Let's make it a more diverse game. And they made a game that was just blah. It's boring, and it lost its identity of being unique and funny because they went far too safe and PC with it. Ultimately, if you just do the story of Agents of Mayhem and you don't unlock...
And I thought I broke it, but I didn't know what I did to break it.
Bruce visited Dr. Robert Youd at the Fallon Clinic in Worcester, Massachusetts. He presented with...
is grinding, boring, repetitive shooting, and maybe 2 hours is story and or doing something unique. And that's the problem with the game. It's just not fun, it's not engaging, it's not funny, and there's no reason to keep someone around to want to do it. I personally thought the game was and I only unlocked all the side agents, and that was it. I actually know someone who actually liked the game, alright? This was someone who actually enjoyed the game because it was grinding gameplay that they liked. And even they didn't do those agent missions to get the weapon skins. They were like, it's near the end of the game. Why am I going to bother with that? All I'm going to do is get a weapon skin I'm not going to use again because the game's over. And they're absolutely right. There's really no reason to do any of the side content in this game unless you want to see every agent, which you probably want to. But outside of that, why ever do another side mission? You could coast through the game, and there's no real benefit to doing it. So Agents of Mayhem is incredibly disappointing, loses all the humor and the uniqueness of the Saints Row franchise, goes in a incredibly kind of more PC SJW angle, and honestly, it's just not a very good game. Now, here's the thing. It's not a bad game. It functions, it has tons of gameplay, and, you know, it's not like the game is so bad it's broken and you can't play it or anything like that. But you're going to find yourself hard-pressed to have fun with this game, especially because there's no fucking co-op. I can't believe they didn't put co-op in a game like this. It's a game that seems like it's designed for it, and they didn't put it in there. I mean, it's asinine. It's just so insane that they didn't. And so when I look at Saints Row, so you're missing nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you're not wasting any... You're wasting your time playing it, honestly. Even a rental, a weekend rental, you will get absolutely nothing out of playing this game. You can completely skip it and never touch it, and you've missed absolutely nothing. So, for me, Agents of Mayhem, incredibly disappointing. I thought, oh, a new IP from this game studio that's tried and true that we know is good, and it falls flat on its freaking face. It's not good at all. It's just very disappointing. All right? So that's it for my review of Agents of Mayhem, everyone. I hope that you liked it. If you did, please check the video description. There's going to be tons of links in there for fun stuff like my Teespring store, my Patreon, and other ways that you can help support my effort to keep making videos on YouTube. In addition, please consider giving the video a like and or subbing to KO Gaming. You're going to see reviews in this style coming out now in the future. So, there you go. All right? Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you liked the review, and I'll see you next time for another one of my game reviews here on KO Gaming. Peace out.
Specimen, get that ass banned.
Oh, so disgusting. Oh. What the fuck? Shoot him. Austin McCheered, 100 bits that he ate from Taco Bell.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
I ate the naked chicken chalupa.
I didn't do anything.